Ah yes, Dungeons and Dragons. That elusive hobby for only the nerdiest of big-muscled, big-budget action Hollywood movie stars. To be honest, it's surprising that more people aren't into it. Sure, it has a high fantasy setting and enough charts and tables to make a statistician blush, but on the whole, role-playing is a very broadly appealing kind of activity. In role-playing, you make a story. Now, that's it. That's the whole thing. Role-playing is done with a group of individuals known as the party. Now, each of these individuals take on the role of a character, and they basically control who that character is, what their motivations are, and what kind of actions that they make. And once you have this diverse group of characters put into one party, the party goes out and goes on adventures. I mean, these adventures could be saving a kingdom from a deadly plague, removing the dragon death, or just getting Greg to pay you that $5 that he's owed you for a good month now. Like high school, the stupidity is high, the drama's not nearly as important as it seems, and overall, the sky is the limit. And chaperoning this drunken, snack-addled mess is the GM. Now, the GM's role is basically to be everything else in the story. They're the enemies, the other random characters you come across, and random acts of God. Their job is to make the game fun for the players, which means generally, they're trying to kill you. And while this might seem like a simple enough recipe for success, inexperience in cooperative storytelling can often lead to this weird Midwestern standoff, where the players and the GM are trying to compete to see who can piss the other off more. And this happens despite the GM knowing full well that the players will always win.
I've been yelling at second graders all day, so help me God, I have no patience left. Clean that shit up now. You clean that shit up right now.
But it doesn't have to be this way. And to show you how, we're gonna pull from that other cluster cuss with only the faintest illusion of organization. Improv. And the pinnacle rule of improv, the one that's cemented in the foundation and raised to the highest mountaintops, is known as yes and. At its most basic form, yes and is pretty simple to implement. Essentially, anytime someone presents you with information, your response is yes and you add something new. So for example, if someone walks up to you and says, "I think Gravity Falls is only an okay show," you would respond yes, and that's why you're no longer my friend. So long as you are accepting what they're saying and adding to that as opposed to ignoring it, you're doing yes and correctly. Yes and is especially important in improv for a couple of reasons. The first being that in improv, you're making it up on the spot, so you gotta get going quickly. If you're negating everything your partner is giving you, it's a lot like when you're going out to dinner with your friends and you don't really want to suggest anything, but then you just start shooting down every answer that's given to you. Instead, the proper way to improv is to take the first suggestion and have a response to it. Culvers? I love that! Or, yeah, you gonna make us go to Taco Bell? What did I do to you, Jerry? In both cases, you took the suggestion that was given to you and you added to it, either by having a very positive or a very negative response. Improv is a team activity, and like with all other team activities, critical thought has its place, just not on the field. You're not going to catch a basketball player saying, hey, I appreciate that you tossed to me, but Devontae had a three-point shot, so we're going to just take the teams, go back, and we're going to try that again, okay? Now, for the second reason, I'm going to actually give an example instead of explaining it to you. So I just want you to do something pretty simple. I want you to look at me and just describe what you had for lunch. That's it. Pretty simple, pretty easy, can't mess it up. So, viewer, what did you have for lunch? No. No. No, you're wrong. No, it was on rye bread. No, Samantha secretly hates you. No. Thank you. Now, granted, unless you're playing D&D with a bunch of toddlers who've just learned to speak for the first time, it's unlikely you'll encounter negations that explicit. But it still kinda sucks. So what does this have to do with role-playing? Well, a lot. Duh. Just like improv, just like real sports, role-playing is a team activity. And as a result, any fundamentals that you have for other team activities also applies. And for those of you who don't want their characters to consistently go, yes, and, here's a different way to think of yes and in role-playing. In role-playing, yes and means every action is important. Every last one. And this applies to both the players and the GM. On the GM side, this is a lot easier to understand. If your players make an action, it has a reaction. So even if the player does something stupid and horrible and you hate it, why ignore them when you can punish them for that? And on the side of the players, this means for the love of God, pay attention to other people. If Jerry's been talking for 5 minutes about his character wants to go see Chipotle, and you keep ignoring him, Jerry's going to be upset, and everyone else is going to be confused as to why Barry the Necromancer keeps talking about this Chipotle thing that nobody else knows exists. And while it might seem easier to kind of ignore things that don't really interest you at best or are horribly stupid and possibly even offensive at worst, it's a lot more interesting to take those things and have a reaction to it. Why don't your characters talk about Chipotle? Do they hate it? Do they secretly love it? Did Chipotle secretly get wiped out hundreds of years ago and your bard doesn't know about it and you just don't want to break the bad news to him? That's a lot more interesting than just having a character name drop this random thing that nobody else cares about. And for the love of God, please pick up on your GM hints. I know it's fun to do your own thing, and creating your own story is a part of the real fun of role-playing, but if your GM is saying, hey guys, this is where the plot is, at least acknowledge that that's where the plot is before you go off and start ignoring it. And obviously, I'm not going to claim that this is a simple cure-all to make your games thinner and nicer. I'm not Dr. Oz. But I think if you focus on keeping everything important in your role-playing, you're going to have a heck of a lot more fun. So go out into your fictional worlds, and whether you're trying to save the entire planet from aliens, find true love, or get your universe's version of Chick-fil-A to be open on Sundays, embrace every stupid decision that is made, and you will find your stories a lot more interesting and a lot more fun.